I was 12 when it happened, but I remember every sound, every shadow, and even the smell of that night. Bellford was never a lively town, but on October 14, 1953, its silence felt different, like someone had taken a deep breath and refused to let it out. The old clock tower had just struck 11 when I saw Mr. Cray stumbling down Hollow Street. He was shouting, pointing at the Bellford Manor, and yelling something about blood. At first, I thought he was drunk again. He often was. But then I noticed his face, not wild like the usual nights, but pale, shaken, as if he had seen something that didn't belong to this world. By morning, Sheriff Langley found the body of Thomas Bellford sprawled across his study floor. The papers said, murder. The town said, revenge. My father said nothing at all. The Bellfords were the wealthiest family in our county, proud and secretive. People whispered about their hidden vaults, their strange visitors from the city, and their habit of keeping to themselves. Thomas Bellford wasn't just a banker. He controlled who could buy land, who got loans, and who lost their farm. Some folks hated him quietly, some hated him out loud, but no one expected him to die like that, shot twice in the chest, one hand, clutching the edge of his desk as if he'd tried to crawl away. I saw them carry his body out on a stretcher covered with a black sheet. The whole town gathered around Bellford Manor, but no one spoke above a whisper. That's when I first noticed them. The 21 people who had been near the manor that night. They weren't together. They didn't even seem to know each other. But I counted them as clear as the numbers in my school books. The milkman, leaning against his truck like he hadn't moved all night. Miss Holloway, clutching her umbrella though there wasn't a drop of rain. The two Ward brothers who swore. They were hunting raccoons near the creek. And 18 others, scattered like chess pieces someone had dropped in a hurry. 21 people, all awake at midnight, all silent. When the sheriff questioned them, not one claimed to have seen or heard a thing. Not the shot, not the footsteps, not even the barking of the Bellford dogs. 21 witnesses, and not a single word of truth. That's when I decided I had to find out what happened myself. It wasn't just curiosity. Something told me that, if everyone stayed quiet, the wrong man would hang. And in Bellford, when the wrong man hangs, everyone looks the other way. The first clue came 3 days later. I was sitting on the back steps of our house trying to make sense of it all when I overheard my father talking to Reverend Carter. He said, "They'll never speak. They can't. Every one of them has something to lose." I wasn't supposed to hear that. But once I did, I couldn't let it go. What could tie 21 different people to a single murder? Fear? Money? Guilt? That evening, I rode my bicycle to the Bellford Cemetery. The grave diggers were finishing up, lowering Thomas Bellford into the ground. I watched from behind a tree as they shoveled dirt, and I noticed something odd. Miss Holloway was there again, standing off to the side, staring not at the grave, but at the manor in the distance. Her umbrella still open, her lips moving like she was counting something. By the time I got home, the sun was gone and the wind off the marshes carried a smell like wet iron. My father was waiting at the door. He never asked where I'd been. He just said, "Stay away from that house, boy, stay away from those people." But I couldn't. Not when I'd already decided to list the 21 names in my notebook, right under the heading, Silent Witnesses. The first I approached was the milkman. Early next morning, I stood by his truck pretending to tie my shoe. "Were you near Bellford Manor that night?" I asked. He looked at me, then at the empty road. "You didn't see me," he muttered, tossing 2 bottles into his crate. "And if you value that sharp little head of yours, you'll forget you asked. That warning should have scared me off, but it didn't. It just proved I was onto something." The next was Miss Holloway. I found her near the post office tapping her umbrella on the sidewalk like a metronome. I asked if she'd heard the gunshots. She smiled without showing teeth. and said, "Guns? No, dear, it was bells. Didn't you hear them ringing?" I didn't know what she meant until later. By the end of that week, 3 more people on my list gave me the same look, the look grown-ups give when they want you to stop digging. But I wasn't just digging anymore. I was listening. Bellford had a way of talking without words. People shut doors quickly. They crossed the street to avoid each other. And every night, around 11, I'd hear something faint in the distance. Not quite bells, not quite wind. I started calling it the tolling. Then came the night I crept near the manor. The sheriff's men had gone, the Bellford family stayed locked inside, and the windows glowed with dim yellow light. I slipped through the orchard and crouched near the stone wall. That's when I heard voices, 2 men. One said, "If he talks, we're all finished." The other replied, "He won't. None of them will. That boy better not stick his nose in." I froze. They were talking about me. When I turned to leave, I saw something shining in the grass. A spent shell casing. My first real piece of evidence. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the way the whole town had gone still, the way 21. People stood together yet apart, bound by something invisible. And I realized Bellford wasn't just silent, it was afraid. The next morning, Sheriff Langley arrested Mr. Cray, the drunk who first raised the alarm, said he found Cray's fingerprints on Bellford's study door. But I knew Cray didn't do it. He was too scared to kill a man like Bellford. And besides, that casing I found didn't match any gun he owned. That's when I made my choice. If no one else would speak, I'd find the truth myself. I'd talk to all 21 witnesses. One by one, but I had no idea how dangerous that list would become, because someone else had it too. The day after Mr. Cray's arrest, Bellford changed. People closed their shutters even in the morning. The streets emptied faster at dusk. It was like the whole town decided to stop breathing at once. I rode past the jailhouse on my bicycle. Cray sat behind the iron bars, head down, hands trembling. Not from drink this time, this was something deeper. Fear makes a man shake in a different way. He looked up at me, his eyes glassy. "Boy," he whispered, "they're watching me. Tell your pa I didn't do it." Then Sheriff Langley slammed the door and told me to go home. But I didn't go home. I went straight to my notebook. I already had the names of 7 silent witnesses. 14 more to go. I decided to talk to them in an order that wouldn't raise suspicion. Start with folks who wouldn't expect a boy to care about murder. The 8th name was old Jacob Dempsey, the night watchman at the rail yard. He was a quiet man with a limp, always chewing tobacco and staring at the ground. I found him on his usual bench, counting the boxcars as they rolled by. "Mr. Dempsey," I said, "were you near Bellford Manor the night Mr. Bellford died?" He didn't answer right away, just spat a brown stream into the dirt. "What you want to go asking questions for? Ain't your business." "I just don't think Mr. Cray did it," I said. That made him glance at me, sharp and fast. "Careful, saying that out loud. Truth ain't safe in Bellford no more." Then he stood up and walked off without another word. 9th name, Nora Bell, the school librarian. She'd always been kind to me, letting me read books older than I was, even when I didn't have a card. I thought maybe she'd tell me something, but when I asked, she pressed her finger to her lips. "Hush," she whispered. "Walls have ears." And then she locked the library door, at 3 in the afternoon. By now, I knew it wasn't just about protecting themselves. These people were protecting something else, something they all shared, though none would speak of it. That night, I sat at my bedroom window staring at the lights of Bellford Manor. They glowed like lanterns floating in black water. Then I heard it again, that faint sound drifting through. The air, soft as breath. Not quite bells, not quite wind. The tolling. I didn't sleep. By morning, I'd decided to be bolder. I skipped school and went to Hollow Creek, where the Ward brothers claimed they'd been hunting raccoons the night of the murder. I found them cleaning traps behind their barn. Why were you near Bellford Manor that night? I asked. The older brother, Clyde, narrowed his eyes. What's it to you? I'm making a list, I said, maybe too proudly. A list of the 21 people who were there. Both brothers froze. For a moment, even the wind stopped moving. Then the younger one. Earl whispered, Don't tell nobody you got a list. Why not? I asked. Because if they know you're keeping track, Clyde said, stepping closer, you'll end up like Bellford. I pretended to laugh, but my stomach turned cold. I backed away slowly, hopped on my bike, and rode so fast my chain nearly snapped. That evening, my father noticed me scribbling names in my notebook. What's that? He asked. Just schoolwork, I lied. He stared at me a long time. Stay away from that house. Stay away from Langley. Stay away from anyone who won't look you in the eye. Then he lowered his voice. This ain't just murder, son. This is something older. Older? What did that mean? The next day, something strange happened. When I opened my notebook, a page was missing. The one with the first 9 names. Torn clean out. I didn't tell my father. I didn't tell anyone. But I started keeping the notebook under my pillow at night. That afternoon, I went to talk to the 10th witness, Mr. Price, who ran the hardware store. He greeted me kindly enough, but when I asked where he'd been the night of the murder, his smile vanished. Boy, he said, leaning close, you think you're clever. You're not. You're playing in quicksand. I swallowed hard. But if Mr. Cray didn't kill him? Stop there, he interrupted. You want to end up in the marshes never found? You keep on talking. I left without buying a thing. That night I saw something from my window. A lantern moving through the Bellford orchard. I grabbed my coat and followed, staying low. The lantern bobbed like it was held by someone in a hurry. I trailed it to the edge of the manor grounds, where it stopped beside the old well. I crouched, behind a tree, heart hammering. The lantern holder bent down and dropped something shiny into the well. Then he turned, and for a split second, I saw his face in the moonlight. It was Reverend Carter. I ducked before he saw me, waited until he was gone, then crept to the well. Too dark to see inside, but I heard a faint splash far below. Whatever he'd dropped, it wasn't small. By the time I got home, my notebook was missing again. Someone had been in my room. Now I knew 2 things for certain. Reverend Carter was tied to Bellford's death. Someone was watching me very closely. The next morning, Sheriff Langley announced that Mr. Cray would be tried within a month. Justice will be swift, he told the townsfolk gathered outside the courthouse. But I saw the way Langley's hand trembled as he adjusted his hat. Meanwhile, the 21 witnesses stayed silent. Doors stayed locked. Curtains stayed drawn, and I kept hearing that tolling sound every night, closer now, as if the bells, or whatever they were, had started moving through the streets. I only had one thought left. I had to reach the Reverend, before Langley did. If anyone knew why 21 people shared the same secret, it was him. But I didn't know Reverend Carter wasn't alone. He was meeting with someone else in the shadows of Bellford Manor, and they were talking about me. I didn't leave town the next morning like my father told me to. I couldn't. Not with Reverend Carter's leather book hidden under my floorboard, and not after seeing 21 people, including my father, standing in a circle around Bellford Manor. I spent the early hours of dawn watching the street through my window. Bellford woke slower than usual. No wagons rattling past, no kids chasing each other to school, not even the milkman whistling. It was as if the whole town had been out all night and was now sleeping off a secret. I pedaled down Hollow Street anyway. No one looked at me directly, but I could feel eyes behind curtains. When I reached the jailhouse, Sheriff Langley was leaning against the doorframe, sipping coffee. "Morning, boy," he said. "Shouldn't you be in school?" "I wanted to see Mr. Cray," I answered. Langley narrowed his eyes. "You shouldn't be nosing around. Folks are saying you've been asking questions. Dangerous habit. Why are you locking up a man you know didn't do it? I asked before I could stop myself. The sheriff didn't flinch, but his fingers tightened on his coffee cup. Careful, he said slowly. Sometimes the law has to keep peace, not just find truth. Is that what this is? I said. Peace? Langley didn't answer. He just turned and went inside, leaving me in the dust. By afternoon, I decided to talk to someone who'd been avoiding me, Miss Holloway. I found her tending her roses, the same umbrella resting in the crook of her arm, though the sun was shining. Miss Holloway, I said, I saw you at the manor last night. She froze. The clippers in her hand stopped mid-snip. You were spying? I saw all 21 of you, I said. What were you doing there? Her lips pressed together until they turned white. Child, she said softly, there are doors in this town you're too young to open. Walk away before they open on you. Tell me about the tolling, I pushed. She dropped the clippers. For a moment, I thought she might strike me, but instead she whispered, the tolling isn't for you yet. Pray it never is. Then she picked up her clippers and turned her back on me. That night, I hid near the orchard again. The moon was thinner, the shadows longer. I crouched behind the stone wall as lanterns appeared one by one, forming the same circle around the manor grounds. Reverend Carter raised his lantern twice, and they all stepped closer to the house. I could just make out their lips moving, whispering words too low to hear. Then the tall man spoke. His voice cut the night like a blade. Keep the boy quiet. He has the book. I froze. They knew. Carter shook his head. He's just a child. He doesn't understand. That's why he's dangerous, the tall man said. Children don't know which truths to bury. My legs wanted to run, but I stayed still. If I bolted, they'd see me. If I stayed, I'd hear more. The tall man continued. Bellford broke the covenant. He wanted out. That's why he had to die. If the boy speaks, others will follow. Silence. Is our shield. If he won't stay quiet... No one answered him, but the circle tightened. Their lanterns swung in unison, like pendulums keeping time. I crept back inch by inch until I could run without being seen. By the time I got home, I was shaking too hard to get my window open. I had to pound on the door until my father let me in. He didn't yell. He didn't even look angry. Just tired. Where were you? He asked. At the manor, I admitted. I saw you there. He didn't deny it. Boy, you have to let this go. You're digging up roots you don't understand. Tell me about the covenant, I said. His face went pale. Where did you hear that? In Carter's book, I said. I found it. He closed his eyes and leaned against the wall like he'd been hit. That book should have been burned years ago. What is it? I demanded. Why did you all meet last night? Why did you kill Bellford? He grabbed my shoulders hard enough to hurt. I didn't kill anyone, but I swore an oath, same as the rest. An oath to keep Bellford safe. He broke it, and now he's gone. And now he's... That's all you need to know. No, it's not, I shouted. Mr. Cray's going to hang for something he didn't do. My father's grip tightened. And if you keep shouting, you'll hang too. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not of Reverend Carter, not of the tall man, but of whatever lay behind them. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the book on my chest under the blanket, afraid someone might tear up the floorboard while I dozed. Around midnight, I heard footsteps on our porch, then a soft knock on my window. I almost screamed, but it wasn't the tall man. It was Nora Bell from the library. Her face was pale in the moonlight. Boy, she whispered, give me the book. Why? I whispered back. Because they'll kill you if you keep it, she said. Please, you don't know what you're holding. I'm not giving it up, I said. Not until someone tells me what's going on. Her eyes filled with tears. Then hide it better. They're coming tonight. She shoved an envelope through the gap in the window. Read this after. I'm gone. Then she ran off down the street. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one sentence. The tolling means the gate is open. I didn't understand it then, but I would soon. The next evening I saw lanterns again, this time moving through Hollow Street, not just around the manor. They weren't sneaking anymore. They were parading, silent but steady, 21 lights cutting through the dark. I followed at a distance until they stopped at the old bell tower near the square. Reverend Carter stepped forward and rang the bell 3 times, though no sound came from it. Not a clang, not a peal, just empty swinging. But I heard something. Else the tolling again, soft and far away, answering his silent bell. The tall man turned toward the shadows where I hid. Bring him out, he said. 2 lanterns swung my way. Figures moved through the dark. My heart stopped. I'd been spotted. I bolted down an alley, cutting through backyards until I hit the creek. Behind me, voices called softly, not shouting, not angry. Just patient. Boy, Reverend Carter called, come back. We just need to talk. I didn't believe him. I waded across the creek, soaking my shoes, and scrambled up the far bank toward the old rail yard. No one followed me that far. But as I stood there panting, I realized something awful. They didn't need to chase me. They knew exactly where I lived, and tonight they wouldn't be coming for a talk. I waited until the church bell struck 9 before leaving my house. My father was still at work, which gave me an hour to slip out unnoticed. I took my bicycle, but once I got within sight of the church, I pushed it by hand to keep quiet. The course, Reverend's window glowed faintly with lamplight. I'd been to Reverend Carter's office plenty of times before, usually dragged there by my father when I'd skipped school or talked back. He was a calm man, always speaking in low, steady tones. But calm men can hide storms under their skin. And last night I saw him drop something into the Bellford well. Calm men don't do that. I didn't bother knocking. I crept around the side of the church where the ground dipped near the cellar window. Through the glass I saw him sitting at his desk, head bowed, lips moving like he was praying. Or rehearsing something. A second figure stood in the corner, tall, coat collar up. I couldn't see the face, but I could hear every word. They're getting suspicious, Reverend Carter whispered. Then keep them quiet, the man replied. The boy's already asking questions. Leave him alone, Carter said quickly. He's just a child. Children talk too, the man snapped. And if he talks, others will too. You know what's at stake. I strained to listen, heart pounding in my throat. I'll handle it, Carter murmured. But no more blood, not unless it's necessary. The tall man laughed softly, a sound colder than the marsh wind. It's always necessary. I ducked back just as they moved toward the door. My foot slipped on the wet grass, and I barely caught myself before tumbling into the open. I ran behind the graveyard wall and held my breath as they passed, Carter carrying his lantern, the tall man shadowed beside him. I wanted to follow, but their pace was too quick, and my courage ran thinner than I liked to admit. I waited until they disappeared toward Bellford Manor before creeping back to the cellar window. Carter's desk drawer was open. Inside was a small leather-bound book, but I couldn't make out the writing. I filed it away in my head. Book in Carter's desk. Check later. By the time I got home, my window was open. Again. The notebook under my pillow was gone. This was the 3rd time. Someone didn't just know about my list. They wanted me to know they knew. The next morning, the whole town gathered at Bellford Square to hear Sheriff Langley announce the trial date for Mr. Cray. I stood near the edge of the crowd, scanning faces. I counted again, just to be sure. 19 of the 21 silent witnesses were here, scattered like chess pieces, watching but pretending not to. The milkman, Miss Holloway with her umbrella, the Ward brothers, Nora Bell from the library, old Jacob Dempsey, Mr. Price from the hardware store. The others I'd seen near the manor that night but hadn't spoken to yet. Only two were missing. Reverend Carter and the tall man I hadn't identified yet. Langley cleared his throat. "The evidence is clear," he said. "Mr. Cray will face justice. We aim to keep Bellford safe." No applause. No cheers. Just the sound of feet shifting in the dirt and the creak of wooden signs swinging in the wind. After the crowd broke apart, I cornered Nora Bell by the library steps. "Why won't anyone say what they saw?" I asked. Her eyes darted left and right. "Because seeing and speaking are different things," she whispered. "In Bellford, people who speak don't stay around long." "Who's the tall man?" I pressed. Her lips tightened. "You don't want to know, boy." Then she hurried off, nearly dropping her keys. Later that afternoon, I went looking for Reverend Carter at his parsonage. He wasn't home, but the back door was unlocked. I hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. The air smelled faintly of lamp oil and damp paper. On his desk lay the same leather-bound book I'd seen through the window. I flipped it open. Inside were 21 names, my 21 names, and beside each, strange markings, little circles and slashes like Bell, clappers drawn in ink. At the top of the list was Thomas Bellford's name, crossed out. I stuffed the book into my coat pocket and ran. By dusk, I was back in my room with the door locked. I read every page by lamplight. The book wasn't a diary. It was a record. A list of meetings held late at night, notes about the pact and the tolling. Phrases like, "Silence is our covenant," and "Ring the hour, guard the gate." My hands trembled as I turned the pages. Then I found something worse. Near the end of the book, under my own name, yes, my own name, was a fresh ink mark. Not a bell shape this time, just a cross. That's when I heard it again outside my window. Not quite bells, not quite wind. Closer now, the tolling. I blew out my lamp and crouched low. A lantern moved through our yard, slow and deliberate. I recognized the shape of Reverend Carter's shoulders, but he wasn't alone. The tall man was with him, scanning the house with sharp, jerky movements. I could almost feel his eyes slice through the darkness toward my window. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After what felt like hours, they walked on toward Hollow Street. I waited another 20 minutes before daring to move again. My father came home soon after, and I shoved the book under the floorboard where I kept my old baseball, cards. Over dinner, he stared at me the same way the Ward brothers had. "You're poking around where you shouldn't, son," he said, without me telling him a word. "There are things in Bellford older than both of us. Best you leave them. Buried." I wanted to ask if he was one of the 21, but I bit my tongue. If he wasn't, he might think I was crazy. If he was, he'd never tell me. That night, I dreamt of bells ringing underwater. Each toll felt like it was cracking my ribs open. When I woke, the sound hadn't stopped. It was real, echoing faintly through the marsh. I crept outside barefoot, following it down the road until it led me past the church, past the square, and up toward the manor gates. That's when I saw them, all 21 of them, standing in the moonlight in a perfect circle around the Bellford orchard. They weren't talking, just standing there holding lanterns, waiting for something. Reverend Carter at the head, the tall man beside him, face still hidden. Then the tolling stopped. Carter raised his lantern once, twice, and they all began to walk slowly toward the manor. I didn't follow. I ran. When I finally made it home, gasping and soaked with sweat, my father was waiting at the door again. Only this time he wasn't angry. He looked scared. "They saw you, didn't they?" he said. I nodded. He locked the door behind me and turned out every light in the house. "Listen to me, boy. Tomorrow morning you get on your bicycle and ride. Don't stop at the square, don't talk to anyone, don't come back till I say it's safe." "Safe from what?" I asked. He looked at me a long time. "Safe from the same thing that killed Thomas Bellford." and for the first time I realized my father wasn't just warning me. He was part of it. I stayed awake until dawn, watching my window. The Reverend's book never left my grip. I didn't hear footsteps on the porch this time, no tapping glass, no whispered voices, but that didn't make me feel safer. It only meant they were waiting, until I was too tired to fight back. When my father came into my room that morning, I had the book shoved under my pillow. He stared at me for a long time, like he was deciding whether I was his son or just another problem to solve. "Pack a bag," he said. "You're leaving town." "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "You don't have a choice." I sat up, my fists clenched. "You swore an oath to keep Bellford safe. What about me? What about Mr. Cray? He's gonna hang for something he didn't do, and you're just going to let it happen." His jaw tightened. "This is bigger than Cray, bigger than me. You don't understand what you're up against." "Then explain it," I shouted. "Tell me what the covenant is. Tell me what the tolling means. Why 21 people meet in secret with lanterns like ghosts in the orchard." He didn't shout back. That almost scared me more. "Boy," he said quietly, "some truths rot your bones the moment you speak them. The only thing you need to know is this. Keep that book hidden, and keep your mouth shut." Then he left the room without another word. I didn't keep my mouth shut. As soon as he left for work, I pedaled to the jailhouse. Mr. Cray sat slumped on the bench inside his cell, looking more dead than alive. When he saw me, his lips cracked into a crooked smile. "Boy," he whispered, "they're not going to let me see another sunrise, are they?" "I won't let them hang you," I said, "but I need to know what you saw at Bellford Manor." Cray shook his head weakly. "Can't. They'll kill me." "They already are," I said. His eyes brimmed with tears. "I saw lights in the orchard. 21 lights. I went up to warn Bellford, but the front door was locked. Then I heard the tolling, like bells underwater. When I finally got in through the side door, he was already gone. Shot. The study smelled of lamp oil and gunpowder." "Who did it?" I pressed. "I didn't see," he whispered. "But I know who ordered it. The man in the long coat." "The tall man?" Cray nodded slowly. "Don't cross him, boy. He ain't human." I didn't know what he meant by that, but his face told me he believed it. Before I could ask more, Sheriff Langley came stomping in. "Visiting hours are over," he barked, shoving me toward the door. "Go home, boy, and keep your nose out of grown folk business." That night I followed my father. I waited until he thought I was asleep, then slipped out the window and tailed him through the back streets. He didn't carry a lantern, but I didn't need one to see where he was going. The old bell tower. When I arrived, all 21 were already there, their lanterns glowing in a perfect ring. Reverend Carter stood at the center, the tall man beside him. "The boy must give up the book," the tall man said. His voice was smooth and sharp at the same time, like ice cracking. "If he does not, the tolling will summon something worse than lawmen." Reverend Carter looked uneasy. "He's just a child. We can take the book back quietly. No need to hurt him." The tall man turned, scanning the circle. "No loose ends. Bellford thought he could leave us, and now he's in the ground. The boy thinks he can expose us, and he'll join him if necessary. You all swore the oath. Silence, loyalty, and the gate." The word gate made the hair on my neck stand up. My father spoke then. His voice was low but firm. "He's my son. Leave him out of this." The tall man stepped toward him. Even in the lantern light, his face stayed hidden in shadow. "Then you take the book from him, or you watch him disappear." No one else spoke. The circle was silent except for the faint, tolling in the distance, soft as breath, steady as a heartbeat. I backed away so fast I almost tripped over a tree root. My bicycle chain rattled loud enough to make me flinch, but no one followed. Maybe they didn't have to. I barely slept, but when I did, I dreamed of a door in the ground. A black iron door with no handle, no hinges, just a ring of lanterns glowing around it. Each toll of the bell made the door crack open wider. Something waited inside, pressing against the gap, whispering for someone to let it through. When I woke, I knew I couldn't stay quiet any longer. I had to warn someone who wasn't. Part of the 21, I rode out to see Mr. Jacob Dempsey, the rail yard watchman. He'd always seemed gruff but honest, and I hadn't yet seen him near the meetings, though he was definitely in Carter's book. "Mr. Dempsey," I said, "they're planning to hurt me." He spat tobacco into the dirt and looked me over. "You're meddling where you shouldn't, boy." "I have proof," I said, lowering my voice. "Carter's book, with all your names. Even my father's." His face went pale. "You fool. If you really got that book, you best run till your legs give out." "I'm not running," I said. "I'm stopping them. What's the tolling mean? What's the gate?" He glanced around, to make sure no one was near, then leaned close. "You ever wonder why Bellford's never had a flood? Even with the marsh rising every spring? You ever notice how no one ever talks about the old well on Bellford land? That's the gate, boy. And the tolling," he shuddered. "The tolling means it's opening." "What's behind it?" I asked. He shook his head. "Pray you never find out." Then he shoved me toward my bike. "Go. If they catch you talking to me, we're both dead." That evening, my father came home early. His face was set hard, like stone about to crack. "Give me the book," he said. I didn't answer. "I'm not asking," he said. "They'll kill you if you don't." "They'll kill me if I do," I shot back. "And you know it." For a moment, I thought he might hit me. Instead, he sank into the chair, head in his hands. "You don't understand, boy. The covenant keeps Bellford safe. Keeps what's under there locked away. Bellford wanted out. He tried to sell the land, break the circle. That's why they put him down, not out of hate, out of fear." "Fear of what?" He looked up at me, eyes red. "The tolling isn't just a sound. It's a warning. If the circle breaks, the gate opens." "Then stop it," I shouted. "Tell the sheriff. Tell everyone." He shook his head. "Langley's one of us. They all are. And if you try to warn anyone else, they'll ring the bell for you." Before I could answer, someone knocked on the door. 3 soft knocks, slow and steady. My father stiffened. "Upstairs, now." I didn't listen. I crouched on the stairs as he opened the door. Reverend Carter stood there with his lantern. "It's time," he said. "Bring the boy. Tonight." My father hesitated. "He's not ready." The tall man's voice came from the darkness beyond Carter. "Then make him ready. Midnight at the well." The door closed. My father turned to me with a look I'd never seen before. Fear and love mixed together. "Run, boy," he whispered. "Don't ever look back." But it was already too late, because when I glanced out the window, I saw lanterns moving through the street, 21 lights closing in. The night was bitterly cold, the kind of cold that seeps through your coat and settles in your bones. I walked alone to the old parish cemetery, the only sound the crunch of gravel under my boots. My breath fogged before me, rising like faint, ghosts into the windless dark. I hadn't slept since I'd uncovered those journals from the cellar floor. The words kept replaying in my mind. They are watching. 21 souls, 21 witnesses. None speak, none leave. When I reached the rusted gates of the cemetery, I froze. Someone had left them open, not wide, but just enough to suggest passage. The hinges groaned as I pushed them, a sound that echoed across the empty yard. The moon hung low, casting silver light over the leaning headstones. That's when I saw them, 21 markers arranged in a perfect ring. I'd walked past them 100 times before, never noticing the pattern, names I'd never heard, dates carved by hand, 1862, 1862, 1862, all the same year. I stepped closer, heart hammering. Each stone bore the same cryptic phrase at the base. We watched, we heard, we kept the bell, always the bell, A whisper rose behind me, no louder than a shifting breeze. Leave. I spun around. Nothing. Only the dark. Only the stones. My chest felt tight, but I forced myself to stay. Who are you? My voice cracked in the cold. What happened in Bellford that night? The wind picked up, swirling leaves in tight circles around the graves. I heard the sound again, not a whisper now, but a low, mournful ringing. The bell tower of St. Perdita's Church was miles away, long since abandoned. Yet the bell tolled once, twice, 3 times, rolling across the hills like thunder. Then I saw her, a figure at the far edge of the cemetery, standing perfectly still. A woman in a long, black dress, hair loose and tangled, watching me. I took a step toward her and she turned, gliding, not walking, behind one of the gravestones. I followed, breath short. When I rounded the stone, she was gone. No footprints. No trace. Only the carving on the marker before me. Eleanor Price, age 17. Taken, not lost. I crouched down, running my fingers over the frozen letters. 17. My age. A lump formed in my throat. Taken, not lost. Was she warning me? Or choosing me? Behind me, the bell rang again, but this time it wasn't far away. It was close. Too close. Coming from beneath the earth. The ground under my boots trembled like something alive. I stumbled back, staring as frost cracked over the soil between the graves. My breath quickened. A faint glow seeped from below, outlining the circle of 21 stones, and then I heard them, voices, low, overlapping murmurs, impossible to understand. A council of whispers, witnesses who refused to rest. "Tell me," I shouted, voice breaking. "What did you see? What are you trying to say?" The voices rose, harsh and desperate. Fragments pierced through. "He rang the bell." Blood at the altar. We swore to silence. "The debt remains." I dropped to my knees, hands pressed to the cold ground. Who? Who rang it? The murmurs stopped all at once. The silence was so sudden it made my ears ring. A single voice spoke. Clear and sharp. Not who. What? The light vanished. The trembling ceased. I was alone again in the dark. I staggered to my feet, chilled to the core. My legs barely held me as I backed out of the circle. My mind spun with questions. If it wasn't a person who rang that bell, what kind of thing could leave 21 people silent forever? When I reached the cemetery gate, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Scratched into the iron in fresh marks were 5 words that hadn't been there when I entered. The boy will ring it. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my lantern. Somehow I made it home, slamming the door behind me, chest heaving like I'd run a marathon. I leaned against the wall, staring at nothing, heart pounding in my ears. The bell wasn't done with Bellford, and for some reason I didn't understand. It had chosen me. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor with the old journals spread around me, studying every page. Somewhere in these brittle pages was an answer. I just had to find it before the bell tolled for me. But even as I searched, I felt it. A faint hum in the air, like a distant vibration running through the bones of the town. The bell wasn't ringing yet, but it was waking up, and 21 silent witnesses were waiting to see what I'd do next.